Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. For a moment, I thought that Mr. Ahmadinejad had managed to take me off the speaker list. So, I'm very glad that I'm actually able to be up here and to be able to talk to you. And I promise you I will keep it brief because you all have, I guess, my book in your gift packs that you received. So I'm sure you will be able to read the story. First of all, let me just say that, again, it has been such an emotional experience for me to be here. And I thank you all for the time you have shared with me and for all the stories you have told me. I totally feel energized to continue my speaking tour of Europe. I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go to France and then to Italy. So thank you very much for really, really re-energizing me. I was really tired, but now I feel like I'm really ready to hit the road again. Now, I have a few photos to share with you that I will, but I have to admit that I don't have too many photos. What you will see here are only a few family photos that I have. Evin Prison that I spent, I spent 2 years, 2 months and 12 days in Evin Prison between the ages of 16 and 18, and I was only one of thousands of teenage political prisoners in Iran, and this situation in Iran has been going on for 30 years. So, when we entered Evin Prison, basically all of our personal belongings were taken away. And nobody could take photos in Evin Prison. You can search the internet, and there is really close to nothing on Evin Prison. It's completely shrouded in darkness. So I guess all we have is basically the testimonies of the people who spent time there, and this is it. Now, you saw some images from Cambodia's torture chambers. And it always surprises me how, torture rooms, it doesn't matter if you're in China or Cambodia or Iran or wherever in the world you are, torture rooms basically look the same. So once you have seen the one in Cambodia, you have seen the one in Evin Prison. So I was tied up to one of those beds and I was tortured, and I'm not going to get into the details. You can read it all in the book. A few weeks ago, I was in Auschwitz with a group of Canadians. We had gone, a group of writers and journalists, and we had gone to see concentration camps. And as I was in Auschwitz one, it was striking to me how it reminded me of Evin Prison. And I found it really difficult to not get emotional. And then we entered the room, and those of you who have been in concentration camps, have visited them, you would know that they have collections of shoes. So when we were standing in front of the shoes, I suddenly thought that, wait a second, what did they do to our shoes? Because they took everything away from us. They took away my shoes, and my shoes were Puma running shoes. They were white, and they had red lines on the side. And it was so difficult for me to think that they have even destroyed our shoes. So there is nothing left. This situation has been going on for 30 years, and all I have to share with you, unfortunately, there aren't really too many photos, but all I have to share with you are my words. And that is all that we have left. Our only way to remember is through our words, our stories, and the difficulty is that it is still going on as we speak. So this makes my responsibility even heavier. So here, you can see some of my childhood photos. I grew up in Tehran. I was an average, normal kid, from middle-class family. My father was a ballroom dancing instructor. My mother was a hairdresser, lived in downtown Tehran. And I wore, normal bathing suits, on the beach. I, wore a T-shirt and shorts, and, I rode my bikes on the streets. And I had dreams of becoming a medical doctor when I grew up. But things changed with the revolution. I was 13 when the revolution happened. And when the revolution happened, people filled the streets. They were yelling and screaming, "Death to America, death to Israel, death to everybody," basically, and they wanted freedom and democracy and an Islamic Republic. Now, if you ask the people on the street, what is an Islamic Republic, nobody could really tell you what it was. But nevertheless, the Islamic Republic came and the country completely changed, and with it, basically, my whole life changed as well. And I ended up in prison when I was 16 years old because the main reason was because I asked, this was during the Cultural Revolution in Iran, because I asked the calculus teacher to teach calculus instead of propaganda. And not only me, but hundreds and thousands of teenagers were gathered. We were all arrested in late of the night, usually in our homes, dragged out of our beds, thrown into cars, and then blindfolded upon arrival at Evin Prison. And then 99% of prisoners who entered and still enter Evin Prison were and are still tortured severely. So it is just common practice there. And as it was said, I'm a Christian. I was forced to convert to Islam in prison. They told me that if I didn't marry my interrogator and convert, they would arrest my mom and my dad and my boyfriend. And I said, okay, I'll do anything, just don't touch my family. And this was not at all because I'm a brave person, because I'm not, but because, I had survived in prison believing that I will go home one day. And if they arrested my parents, they wouldn't be a home to go back to. So this is why I said, okay, I'll do anything, just leave my family alone. So again, as you see, there are no photos for me to share with you from what happened in Evin Prison. So I guess you have to take my word for it. But I was forced to marry my interrogator, and it was basically a legalized rape. That was what it was, because I was 17 years old, and I didn't really have a choice. But my torturer husband, who interestingly enough had been a prisoner himself in Evin Prison for 3 years during the time of the Shah and had been tortured himself, he was assassinated about 15 months after our marriage. And very interestingly, his family, who were very good people, they fought for my release, and they eventually secured my release. And one day they opened the doors and they said, go home. And when I arrived home, the very first night I got home, sat at the dinner table with my parents, and I watched in astonishment as they talked about the weather. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Not that I was ready to explain how I had been tortured, but it would have been nice if somebody had said, when you're ready to talk, we are ready to listen, but it never came. So I played along. It's much easier to run away from horror than face it. To accept the responsibility to say that I was there, I survived it. So my life has to mean something. I have to bear witness, because there are those who didn't live through it. But I didn't ask any of those questions for about 17 years. I ran away to the opposite direction for 17 years. Now, another interesting thing is that the past always catches up with you, and it eventually did with me. Now, after I was released from prison, I married my boyfriend, who was the organist at my church, and I was in the choir. So we got married, and it seemed that, well, actually, the marriage itself was an act of defiance, because I went back to my church after I was released. I basically went back to Catholicism. And when I married Andre, my boyfriend, we got married in the Catholic Church in Tehran. And this put another death sentence over my head, because when you convert to Islam, if you convert back, then you're called a murtad and you're automatically condemned to death. But something in me was driving me, something that I wasn't even aware of, and I didn't really become aware of it for another 17 years when we actually moved to Canada. And it was only in 2002 that I just lost the ability to sleep. The past caught up with me. I started having nightmares, flashbacks, and I had to do something about it. There were two options: either go jump off a bridge or tell the story. And I decided to write a book about my experience and to face the truth. It hasn't been easy. I still shake when I speak about what happened in Iran. But even more disturbing than what happened to me, and what makes this even more important, what happened to me is not the past. in any way. It is still going on in Iran. Iran is still a big prison. Iran, even the prison that I was tortured in, still exists. And still thousands of prisoners, yes, thousands of prisoners are in Evin Prison. Many of them, we don't even know their names. Many of them will be killed and we wouldn't know where they are buried. So I urge you to please think about Iran and please make your voices heard. It is important. International pressure does have an effect. So thank you so much for giving me this time and this opportunity. I'm really, really grateful to all of you. Thank you very much.